House next door.
Whoa, what is this, I hear you ask? Biohazard 3 Last Escape. Weren't we playing Resident Evil 3 Nemesis? Well, Biohazard 3 Last Escape is the Japanese original name of the game. Since we finished Resident Evil 3 on PC, I decided to show you something special. And since, unlike the original release, this actually requires some explanation first, let's just keep the attract mode running while I talk about the game. Biohazard 3 on PC had a very special re-release, something that the international version of the game never had. And this is exactly what we're playing. This is why, if you notice, the opening cinematic, the short teaser cinematic, looked so good. It's because, if you can see the 2006 in the copyrights there in the bottom of the menu, this game was re-released in 2006 on DVD by SourceNext, the company that logo of which you saw in the beginning of the game. So basically the idea behind this release is that this was a DVD re-release that contained pretty much exactly the same version of PC version of the game that we played before, but it had all the CGI cutscenes in the unedited, uncompressed, full high quality. They run at 720 to 460, I think at like 30 megabit per second. And they look fantastic. Unfortunately, they won't look as good in this video because, obviously, because of the resampling and all the stuff. Not resampling, but recoding and all the stuff. But still, they will look impressively much better than the original PC release, which actually managed to look worse than the PlayStation release of the game that used much better codec on the CGI videos. So yeah, that's the main difference. However, it also later release had a special patch that I've installed, and it fixed several things that the original Resident Evil PC had. If you remember, like back in the first or the second video, when we were getting up the stairs in RPD, there was a weird glitch on the stairs loading thing. That was fixed, but other than that, nothing much was changed. It also added a few features, like for example, now you can actually turn off the auto-aim, something that you couldn't do on PC version before. And you can also disable the ability to skip the door opening animation, something that we haven't been using before. But on PC, you can actually skip the door opening animations. Anyway, so you see original mode, you see arrange mode. And that's something I will talk about in a separate video. This is the epilogues. We unlock the first epilogue in the first game. This one is Japanese, but you have seen the English translation of it before. You need to complete the game 8 times to get everything and a special message in the end. I will show you all the epilogues later on. Basically all the important, so to speak, text is in Japanese, but a lot of text and all the dialogues are still English. Well, anyway, we'll go in arrange mode and go with a very special costume that Resident Evil 1 fans will understand, will recognize.
Biohazard.
It all began as an ordinary day in September. An ordinary day in Raccoon City. A city controlled by Umbrella. No one dared to oppose them. and that lack of strength would ultimately lead to their destruction. I suppose they had to suffer the consequences of their actions, but there would be no forgiveness. If only they had had the courage to fight. It's true that once the wheels of justice begin to turn, nothing can stop them. Nothing. It was Raccoon City's last chance, and my last chance. My last escape.
This is Chopper Delta, preparing to drop off at area E95070. Over.
What are they?
Wow, don't I just like the look of the CGI cutscenes in the much better quality, huh? Yep, that's Resident Evil 1 costume. And that's the only other costume that I usually use. Anyway, we know the drill, let's escape.
September 28th, daylight. The monsters have overtaken the city. Somehow, I'm still alive. Okay, we've got to get out of here.
What? What do you think you're talking about? I just lost my daughter out there! How dare you tell me to go back outside?
I'm sorry about your daughter, but there isn't gonna be any rescue. We have to get out of here.
No! I'm not going anywhere. I'd rather starve to death in here than be eaten by one of those undead monsters! Now leave me alone! I'm not leaving! Never!
Well, we know how his fate ends. Anyway, you might have noticed that we actually have subtitles in the cutscenes. This is a thing that is exclusive to the Japanese version because the game uses the English voice acting. Unfortunately, it's a thing that will be common to a lot of Resident Evil games. Subtitles are a useful thing that is super cool for people who don't speak native language, like me for example, or who just like to play the game at a slightly lower volume levels and might not hear something. But yeah, unfortunately it's a thing only for Japanese versions of the game. What What you also might have noticed is that some of the files are actually shorter just because the hieroglyphs are much more effective in telling something, so to speak. Because of that, some of the files in the game are so much shorter and just look so much better. Like diary entries, for example, don't take more than 1 page usually, which looks much nicer and much more like a diary, which unfortunately was lost in the English version. Another thing that I rather recently noticed, basically read while I was visiting Resident Evil Wiki, is that this opening narration, not opening, but the previous narration Jill had about September 28th daylight, in the Japanese release, in the Japanese script, actually sounds... It tells us the same thing, but it sounds a bit more specific. As in, it actually doesn't say daylight, it says day, which is somewhat echoed later on in the game when Jill wakes up and she says night, October 1st. Another thing is that instead of zombies have overtaken the city, she just outright tells that you can no longer hear screams of survivors on the streets, which is darker and creepier, but I mean, it basically tells the same thing. So I guess I can understand the change. Even though the game does have some weird things and story crappy decisions, so to speak, and goofs that are noticeable later on. Anyway, what's so special about this specific run is that since we're wearing our battle costume and not the casual suit, we'll actually try to fight Nemesis. Not every time. The idea will be to gather all the items that he drops every time you defeat him. We have seen that he seemed to drop something when we accidentally defeated him by trying to hide something that Jill doesn't seem to understand in the restaurant. But this actually happens every time we defeat him, so we'll try to get all his items. If that means using just a life selection tool to not directly fight him, but still get the item, we'll use that. But if we don't, like the first fight that will be coming up very soon, we'll have to fight him. Something that you might be noticing is a weird, I don't want to say lag, but still a rather weird thing that happens every time you enter any location. Well, we didn't get hit as much as before, but still. That's a thing that happens post-patch. Yeah, Brad, we won't help you. Anyway, this is a thing that never happened to me in the original PC version or the original Japanese re-release before I installed the patch. So I don't know if that's related or not.
Brad, hang in there. Why isn't someone doing something about this?
I didn't know you were still alive, Jill. The police aren't trained for this kind of situation. What could they do? Listen, he's coming for us. We're both gonna die.
What are you saying?
You'll see. He's after STARS members. There's no escape.
You know, Brad, if you would have outright told us that there's a giant tyrant-like monster that tries to kill you with tentacles, maybe you wouldn't have died. But oh well, that's your life that you've thrown away. So anyway, these weird stuttering, lagging glitches, they don't cause usually a lot of trouble, although they are kind of annoying, and they're very difficult to remove in post-video because the sounds are actually playing at the correct speed, it's just that the video lags a bit. That's a thing that in one specific place of the game, at the hospital to be more specific, actually caused me to lose one of the playthroughs completely. Just 3 hours of gameplay, better than the one I'm playing right now, to be honest, just down the drain, because game just hang up for too long in one location for some reason, and that also caused the game to do the incorrect exit, so to speak, and all the video content that I was recording prior to that just got corrupted. So I'll obviously tell where that problematic room is, but I don't know what's up with that, and why is it only because of the patch, and why it didn't happen before. Because game didn't actually change all that much in terms of visual things, except for fixing some of the bugs. Unless I'm not noticing something very obvious. And yet it seems to be glitching a bit more. Well, anyway, we're coming up towards the first meeting with Nemesis, and this time we can't escape, we're going to fight him. To do that properly, we need to prepare some stuff. And I'm actually going to risk it. I'm going to grab all the gunpowder after I sold some things in the item box. But instead of trying to make more ammo for myself right now, I'll try to keep it. I'll try to keep it because we know that there will be a second fight with Nemesis pretty soon after. And we want more grenade rounds for that. Because, as we learned from previous encounters with him, grenades are pretty effective on him. So, what I have right now in terms of ammo is what I'm going to be using in the fight. It's probably not the smartest decision on my part, but, well, I'm going to try and do that. I'm not going to lie, it didn't take me one try, it obviously took me 3. And several completions of the game before several dozen. But, well, okay, this is probably one of the hardest fights in the entire game with Nemesis, just because you don't have a lot of weapons. Anyway, let's see how it goes.
Jill!
Brad!
We've got to... Jill! Help!
Yep, live selection is also in Japanese, so I hope you remember what means what. Anyway, the trick to fighting Nemesis is usually don't go to his left side. The reason for that is pretty simple. Oh, I actually got him not really. There's a special trick that I learned from actually Summer Awesome Games Done Quick 2015 that I never knew before. You can get him stuck, and I'll actually do that later on in the fight. But not yet. But the thing is that you want to run around him using towards his hand that he uses for... Oh yeah, I got him stuck. Fantastic. Yeah, you can do that if you approach from that specific angle. he will eventually get out of it, as you could see. And I got lucky that I could get him down one time before that. But anyway, try to approach him from the hand that he doesn't grab you, which is his left hand, meaning run towards his right hand, usually. Thing is, even though when he hits you, it hurts, when he grabs you, it's much more dangerous, because he throws you like this, which damages you, but when he grabs you after that, and he'll do that, he can instantly kill you if you have... Basically, he can instantly kill you. You can see his right arm kind of becoming more slimy, I guess. And if it charges completely when he's holding you, when he's not throwing you, he just instantly kills you with the tentacle. Like this. But if you're not at a very low health, you can press a lot of buttons, as you usually do when a zombie grabs you or any other enemy, and run away. And I got extremely lucky. As you can see, I used almost all my ammo, but he's dead. Note that this is kind of the item that a lot of people need to make the game faster. And you don't need to fight Nemesis to get it. You can actually choose to fight Nemesis, run to Brett's body, grab this thing, which is actually the STARS card that we need to use to get the password on the computer. Grab the card, then just run away, and the game will play out in exactly the same way as if you chose to run away. Also note that if you try to run from Nemesis in any other direction, he will be following you, like he does later on in the game. It's just that if you enter an RPD, that he stops following you. Although you can run away from him far enough that he will stop following you as well. But in some cases, I believe in this one as well, he will be still waiting for you here. I mean, near the entrance. There's an interesting thing that I never noticed before until checking some of the game files. The locker near the entrance of the room, it actually says JoJo's. And given that this entire location was made for Resident Evil 2 and Hideki Kamiya was the director for that game, and he's a huge fan of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, it's kind of obvious that it was a reference to that. But it's rather difficult to see, especially in this game, because we don't have any close-ups of that specific locker. Unlike Resident Evil 2, where you can actually see it much closer. Also, what you might see is a weird goof. Did you see which door we exited right now in a transition cutscene? Do you see what door is behind Jill right now? It's a different door. It's a weird thing, especially since if you look through the background files, they do have a correct background file in the files. Thing is, it's not like they created a special weird wrong door layout specifically for Resident Evil 3, where in Resident Evil 2 there was the correct door used. Instead, there was a different mix-up. You see, if you play Resident Evil 2 demo version or trial version, the one that came with the Resident Evil Director's Cut extra disc, there was one. If you ever played Resident Evil 1 Director's Cut, you know, the one with the good music, not the one that remixed music and made it horrible. It actually originally came in with 2 CDs, and the second CD was the demo version of Resident Evil 2, which back then already transitioned from the so-called 1.5 version to the one that we know. But the door used for the evidence room was the one that we see in Resident Evil 3. It was changed for Resident Evil 2, the final version, but for some reason there was a mix-up here. And here I thought that you can make grenades like this, and I was horribly wrong. That was really dumb. I did not want to do that at all, but I completely forgot that you actually need to create blue gunpowder first. Oh well, I guess we'll have less grenades for the next fight with Nemesis. We still can make those though. There is a trick that I'm going to use. There are some interesting things that you can learn if you actually check the files, the background images and all that stuff that are included with this or Dreamcast version of the game. Because some rather obvious puzzles were cut out and some things were removed. And same goes with Resident Evil 2, because this room originally obviously contained a lock that had some special thing tied to it. That was like a huge box that you needed to unlock. That was removed. But the door is still weird looking, futuristic looking. And here you see the weird glitch is fixed. This is one of the fixes that the patch did. It's a minor thing, but it still brings the game closer to how it was supposed to be experienced in the first place, so we'll take it as it is. That's still good. Let's check if there are red herbs here. Fantastic. That means that that hallway that I'm still going to go to for more shotgun rounds, the one where Resident Evil 2 you get hands sticking out of the windows, it doesn't contain any herbs. Because the trick to Resident Evil item randomizer system is that if items appear in one place, if they're a part of some randomization, they won't appear in some other place. And if you know where is everything, it's kind of easy to understand how is it happening. So these herbs, these red herbs we saw, are actually tied to the end of the hallway on the first floor. Oh, we're actually having so much easier time at evading zombies and not getting hit this time around. It's like I have played this game around 20 times to get this Let's Play. And yeah, if you have noticed, I'm actually collecting all the files, even in this version, just for the sake of it, and to show that you can actually get the Jill's diary, even if you already played the game once. It's not just the first time playing Unlock. Anyway, next time we're going to grab some lockpicks and we're going to fight some Nemesis. Second time around, and we're actually going to see what special stuff this eagle thing is. What's special about it and what it is it.